The good news, Matthew Savoie is thriving in the top six. The bad news, the Oilers lost again.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Friday edition of Locked On Oilers. I am your host, Zararis. This is my 10th season doing digital hockey content, my third as a host here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and I want to thank everyone that has made Locked On the #1 sports podcast network, and everyone that is making Locked On Oilers their first listen of the day. Locked On Oilers is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we've got your team covered every single day. Today's show, we are going to walk through that very weird game in Columbus. And it's not just because of the cannon. It's not just because of the state of affairs the Oilers are in. As much as it feels like progress was made earlier in the week, with winning 2 in a row, again, the Oilers failed to extend a win streak to 3. We've got a whole lot to unpack. So starting out, we're going to talk about something that John Tortorella talked about down here on the States on the American broadcast of the game, the idea of the Oilers not playing with enough emotion, not playing with enough intensity. Our second segment, we will pivot to talking about transition play, what I thought the Blue Jackets did a nice job of. And then in our final segment, we will talk about the impending return of Zach Hyman, which is supposed to be on Saturday night, but that is not a cure-all. That will not solve all of the Oilers' problems. So, to lay out the scene, to give you some context, if you're an everydayer, you know where I'm at with fighting, forechecking, grittiness, intensity. All of those traits are virtuous. And this isn't to minimize the value of them, because they do have value. Anybody who says they have no value is being disingenuous or they are wrong. I don't think they are particularly meaningful in the context of other actions, but something that Tortorella said on the pregame show that I thought really stuck with me: when you are a team that is struggling to find its identity, struggling to figure out what it's going to do play style wise to be successful, sometimes it feels impossible to score a goal. Not everybody on your team can score a goal with great frequency. Even Connor and Leon, as great as they are, I thought they were really good tonight, by the way, they can't put the puck in the net on command. Things that are non-negotiable, traits that are non-negotiable, intensity, forechecking, grittiness, resiliency, those types of intangibles are amongst the most prioritized when you talk to people within hockey. And this gets to one of my great quandaries within sport. This isn't unique to hockey. I talk about this all of the time with my friends and other people in the media whenever the NFL 100 comes out. What the players prioritize and evaluate and care about in their evaluations, very different from what some people on the outside looking in think about. And that comes down to perception and what is deemed valuable. For a team like the Oilers, when you lose Evander Kane and Corey Perry, you lose sandpaper, you lose abrasiveness, you lose attitude, you lose energy, because those are the types of players that don't need to score a goal or create a dangerous scoring chance to feel an impact. And right now, the Oilers are missing that vibe from this group. Right now, the Oilers are entirely a bellwether based on whether or not they're scoring well or not. And when you are ebbing and flowing based on the game state the way the Oilers are right now, you're going to get the results you're getting right now, which are very disjointed and inconsistent. I think about the one power play opportunity the Oilers had early on in this game where Cole Sillinger forced 3 straight failed zone exits on the Oilers by himself as a one-man forecheck and wasted 20 seconds off the power play. And you think about it, a power play is supposed to be an opportunity for you to build momentum. Even if you don't score a goal, you get the puck down to the other team's end, you circle the perimeter, you get 2 or 3 scoring chances. The Oilers didn't get a single scoring chance on that first power play because of how disorganized they were, because of how disjointed they were. And then once the Jackets scored that first goal, if I close my eyes right now, and plug your ears, Evan Bouchard, if you're listening, I love you, bro. you can't immediately sulk and look like your dog just got hit by a car when that goal goes in. I know the Oilers are a team that is struggling with confidence, that doesn't feel great about their game as a collective. But when you give up a singular goal, when your team gives up, I should say, because he was not playing, Evan Bouchard was not playing goalie. When you concede a singular goal and one of your best players, arguably your third best player on the team right now, immediately sulks his shoulders, rolls his eyes, and visibly sighs on the broadcast, that tells me the state of the vibe around this team. And we've been talking about it for weeks here on Locked On Oilers. My everydayers are very well versed in the lore of the low danger chance game of we're playing low event hockey. And if one of those events in a low event game swings the game, you lose. And this game was a bit more of a high event game because a lot more of the pucks went in the net than usual in an Oilers game in 2025 so far. But at the same time, you think about this game and the fact the Oilers were down multiple goals multiple times, and the Oilers got the game level at one point and then blew the lead, and then where it got it within one, and then ultimately came up just short. They had a couple of decent chances in that final minute. But this Oilers team, offense is not coming easily in terms of creation. And the Oilers did not generate a lot of high danger offense tonight, if I remember correctly. Natural Stat Trick credited them with 3 high danger chances for the entire game. And that's out of 43 scoring chances. 3 of them were deemed high danger. The Oilers generated 1 high danger chance per period in this game against a Blue Jackets team that, to be fair, is improving defensively, but most importantly, and why Columbus was successful, and we'll talk about this more coming up in our second segment, so I won't step on my toes too much, the Blue Jackets understood this moment, and so much of hockey, especially right now, where the game is kind of weird, where save percentages are in the low 890s, where everybody seems to be capable of scoring from anywhere, it is really easy to swing momentum. And that Sillinger play on the penalty kill slowed the Oilers, who slow start. The Blue Jackets control a good chunk of the middle of this game, where it was getting to a ridiculous point where the Oilers couldn't break out. The Oilers could not stay in the offensive zone. It felt like the Oilers went 6-7 minutes in this game without having either a dangerous scoring chance or 30 to 40 seconds of offensive zone time. You don't need both, but if you're going to win in this league, you're going to need either dangerous scoring chances so the other team has to respect your counterattack, or you are going to need to hold the puck down in the offensive zone and work the cycle and slow the game down to take away the other team's speed and to give your defense a break. The Oilers spent so much of this game in their own end chasing the puck around. The Oilers conceded 45 scoring chances against. Now, only 22 of those at 5-on-5 end up 22 of 45 end up getting on the net. So that's telling you the Blue Jackets, a lot of empty calorie offense, less than half of your scoring chances ending up as shots on goal means they're tight angles, they're missing the net, they're getting blocked on the way in. So that's not bad. But that does mean you're spending a lot of time down in that end, especially when you only generate 3 high danger chances yourself in the game. So that means your goalie, and don't get me wrong, I'm not here to defend Calvin Pickard, who I thought was dreadful tonight. But at the same time, you know the limitations of your team, and it's why Chris Knoblauch has you guys playing the style of hockey you are. But at the same time, we are getting to not quite the stretch run here, but we all know the stat about American Thanksgiving and teams in playoff spots, and the Oilers can't win 3 games in a row so far. The Oilers could have won this game. They tied this game up, and then immediately the Blue Jackets scored again, and all of the hard work the Oilers had done to get back in this game, the great performances from Draisaitl, from Savoie, from McDavid, all for naught because they couldn't hold on and because the attention to detail wasn't there. We are going to take our first break on today's edition of Locked On Oilers. When we come back, I'm going to tell you why transition was the key to this game and why the Blue Jackets won. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's really easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch has helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, and get a better handle on my investments. And most importantly, I have not opened a single spreadsheet. I love that Monarch lets me set goals and make better financial decisions for the present and the future. Monarch's virtual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money's going and how I can make it work harder for me. Do not let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Thank you for making Locked On Oilers your first listen of the day, and thank you for help making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So, my friends, as is becoming our tradition, as is becoming our expectation, we are going to take a second and highlight some of the good from this game. And Matthew Savoie continues to impress, was on the line that generated a good chunk of the Oilers' dangerous offense. The fact he was getting time at 5-on-5 with McDavid and Draisaitl in the do-or-die, we-need offense situations. He was on the ice there at the end of the game in the 6-on-5. That's really encouraging and something we've been banging the desk for here on Locked On Oilers for a few weeks now. If you have young talent, the caliber of Savoie, and to a lesser extent, Coward, you got to give them opportunities to use their skill set. And when you pigeonhole those types of players, when you put them in your bottom six and they're playing with less skilled guys, they're not going to be able to be as creative. They're not going to be able to get a real handle on their capacities at this level. And Savoie, for the second night in a row, I thought he did a great job of this in the Flyer game the other day. Just controlling the puck, making good decisions, jumping into plays, taking chances when appropriate on the forecheck to set up counter offense. They set up one goal really nicely off of a play where Savoie jumped a Blue Jackets pass trying to exit the zone. And I wanted to start there talking about Savoie and talking about jumping the zone transition, because transition, like those intangibles we spoke about in our first segment, that is a component of the game that largely comes down to effort. Not everybody can score goals. Not everybody can fight. Not everybody can set up goals. Not everybody can skate really fast. Not everybody's really big. But you can get yourself to the right place at the right time. That is your singular responsibility, especially when the game's not going right. And the Oilers let the Blue Jackets control this game for too long. The Blue Jackets dictated the flow of this game, minimized the Oilers' capacity to do anything. So I'm going to look down here at my notes because I wanted to read something specifically. The Blue Jackets put the Oilers defenders on islands. And when you're playing within a structure and a system, there are rules. If this goes here, I go there. If the puck is here, I go here. Everything has an if-then, and there's a counter for everything. In a vacuum, in theory, of course, everything looks great on a chalkboard or a dry erase board until you go out there and have to do it. But at the same time, it is a real idea there. The system is supposed to work. There's a reason why it's not. Sometimes it's the players don't fit the system well. The skill sets aren't conducive. So players have to make more tactile decisions. They have to choose to prioritize certain components. And you get this funky, half-hearted effort the way you did from the Oilers tonight, where the Oilers were trying. Unequivocally, the Oilers were trying. But it's of the chicken with his head cut off variety as opposed to executing a system. And the big tell of a team that is antsy, that is jumpy, are the stretch passes. Now, there's a difference between Evan Bouchard flinging one 30 or 40 feet up the ice, Adam Fox, Makar, Quinn Hughes, the elite defenseman whipping that puck up the ice to a waiting stick in transition, in stride, is different. I am talking about stretch passes that are trying to exit the zone in one pass, that are from the that are from the goal line or further back to no one in particular. That type of pass, that type of play is not conducive with success, because as soon as forecheckers cue in on that, they start to clamp down the boards. They start to take away that. You lose the rim play. Okay, so we have to start funneling pucks up the middle of the ice, which is even more dangerous than the wall play. And it puts you in an awkward position where if you're an Oilers defender, you look up for an outlet and there's nobody in sight. All you have is a Blue Jackets player bearing down on you. I gave that Sillinger example. I thought Matthew Olivier did a good job of this a couple times as well. I felt Blue Jackets had a bit of pep in their step and they captured momentum at a key point in the game. And yes, I know as a math guy, I'm not supposed to believe in momentum because it doesn't bear out in statistics, but you can feel a vibe shift. And there was an unmistakable one when the Blue Jackets killed off that first Oilers power play. And I felt that as the game went along, the Blue Jackets looked at the game state and said, the Oilers are looking for long bomb passes. We jump in front of these, we cut them off, we don't give whoever's receiving the outlet pass room to keep skating. We contain this. And you keep forcing those mistakes over and over and over again. And then you start to get these defenders seeing ghosts and they start to flub passes. They start to panic a little bit. They're gripping their sticks a little bit too tight. They're missing easy passes. They're receiving passes clunkily and not being able to keep the sequence going. And transition play, especially when it comes to positioning, is about effort. I understand being desperate, trying to get from defense to offense. It is a natural reaction. You let a bunch of kids play soccer without offsides, they all start to realize, okay, if we keep cheating and cheating, I'm going to get a good chance at a breakaway here, and a breakaway is the most dangerous chance. It's funny when you think about it in a vacuum like that, when you think about it just purely theoretical, that little kids deduce quickly the fastest way to score. And it's why we have offsides, because the instinct to cherry pick, to jump the other way is very real. And you can think about it in that respect. When you see a defender fling a puck up the wall to a player who's 70 feet, 60 feet away, it's going to be a real challenge for them to not get that pass intercepted, not get it impeded, especially when the game has an ice tilt feel the way it did tonight with the Blue Jackets, who did just a tremendous job of making the Oilers uncomfortable. And when you have blood in the water, the way the Blue Jackets did with Calvin Pickard tonight, it makes it so frustrating because it's all interconnected. Without good transition play, high danger offense becomes a lot trickier to come by because you're not generating rush chances. You don't have the chances for the 3-on-2s, 2-on-1s. You have less chance at creating a situation where the defenders and the goalie both are moving. And without those high danger chances, it becomes significantly harder to get to offense, to get respect on offense. And that's the other key here. When McDavid and Draisaitl are out there, great, no problems, everything's swimmingly. But with only one of them out there, it's not as effective. You're not tilting the ice as much because you don't have those transition cheat codes. Leon and Connor are both two of the best in the world at carrying the puck into the offensive zone and maintaining possession. And when those guys aren't out there, or when Bouchard's not out there to get the puck up the ice, it becomes a lot more challenging for for the Oilers to play the way they want to. And at this point, it all trickles downhill. It all runs downhill. You can't break out. You're playing more defense. You're playing more defense. You're not scoring. Your goalie gets more tired. Your defenders get more tired. Your defenders, who are already struggling to break out to get into transition, are struggling defensively now. So the times we do actually break the puck out, our guys have been on defense for so long, they're too tired to go back the other way. We have to gain the red line, dump it in, go for a change, and then it becomes the next team's responsibility. But you keep getting that over and over and over again, and pretty soon it becomes self-fulfilling, and that's the real challenge for the Oilers right now, how to get out of this funk. We are going to take our second and final break on today's edition of Locked On Oilers. When we come back, we will celebrate the impending return of Zach Hyman, but I'm going to tell you why that alone isn't going to fix the Oilers' problems. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, and mood even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. I got my pouch here. I've been using Drip Drop for a few weeks now, and I frankly love the taste. It doesn't taste synthetic like a lot of the mixtures you'll use, and I really do feel the difference. I love the passion fruit flavor. It tastes great. It's become my secret weapon for staying sharp and energized through long days. Hydration has always been a non-negotiable for me. Drip Drop makes it that much easier. And right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now for that winter bulk. You'll thank me later. Keep your mind and body performing at their best with Drip Drop. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for a game. That is my favorite feeling in the entire world. Coming off the concourse, going up the tunnel, the 2 steps up to the platform, you show your ticket to the usher, you're met with that big flash of arena light, the scoreboard that is bigger than your house, the house music that makes your brain vibrate, the smell of hot dog, beer, popcorn. That is my happy place. That is where I would always like to be. But we can be honest about it. Getting tickets has become really difficult. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It is the ultimate hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I haven't been to a game since Monday. Oh no, what am I talking about? I went to the game on Monday, Rangers, Predators. Was very grateful that one of my friends asked if I wanted to go. He, of course, got the tickets on Game Time, where I have got all of my friends hooked. And the best part about getting tickets through Game Time is the panoramic seat view, where when you click on a ticket listing, it will show you a picture from your seat, so you know what you are walking into on game day. No surprises. In some NHL markets, you can find tickets for even under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Thank you so much to everyone who is hanging out on this Friday edition of Locked On Oilers heading into the weekend. And that stunk. I'm just going to be honest and candid with you. That was a game that the Oilers should have found a way to win, that if they get one more bounce, and they used all their bounces already between the Flyers game and the game on Monday against the Blue Jackets. I am starting to get to a point with this team where I am worried, because the vibes are not great. Other than Connor Leon, occasionally Bush and Savoie the last week or so, the help isn't really here. And I think Zach Hyman's going to come back in pretty good spirits. I think Zach Hyman is going to come back and make a pretty good impact right away, especially just because he's going to lengthen the lineup. And by sliding Hyman in next to McDavid, you run into the real problem now of, what are we doing with Savoie? I assume that means Mangiapane is going to go down. I think Mangiapane is a little overmatched on first lines in the McDavid minutes. I love Mangiapane. He's one of my favorite players in the NHL, but we talked about those underlying numbers earlier in the week. The Oilers are just not performing with what they need, with especially the way the team is playing in those McDavid minutes with Mangiapane out there. Nugent-Hopkins is going to be out for a little while. So with that said, there is the plausibility of Savoie staying in the top 6, at least till Nuge comes back. But ultimately, and we talked about this earlier in the week, I will probably talk about this more in depth next week. Maybe I'll do something short over the weekend. I think ideally, You want to end up with McDavid playing with Savoie and Hyman. You want Draisaitl playing with Podkolzin and with Jack Roslovic. You want Nuge centering that third line. And then you figure out the rest from there, whether that's kicking Henrique out to the wing, Henrique to the fourth line. You trade Henrique if you can get him agree to his no trade clause and save the money, whatever happens to come to mind as far as your solution there. But the Oilers need more juice. They need energy. They need fire. Zach Hyman was leading the playoffs in hits when he got hurt in the Dallas series. He was on pace to break the playoff record for hits in a single postseason. He will make an impact, and he will be noticeable from the jump. This is not the case of a player coming off of a lower body injury where they can't do cardio as easily. He had a fractured wrist. That is something that you can run, you can exercise, you can have pretty good cardio with an upper body injury of that variety. Now, I think it's going to take a couple games for his feel to come back, for his positioning to get for his hockey sense to kick in effectively. I think it's kind of like riding a bike. Once you get your feel back, it's there. But I do think that's one of those you got to use it or lose it situations where if you're not in the fight, if you're not in the fire, it's kind of hard to just click it back on. But Hyman coming back elongates the lineup. It should make the power play better. It should give McDavid a bit of comfort. And most importantly, this group needs something to break their way. The game on Monday night was as funky a win as you're going to get. The goal that goes in, that ties the game with less than a minute to go. Crazy. The shorthanded Wallman goal, insane. The most ridiculous luck imaginable for a team that seemingly hasn't been able to find luck at all this year. And it's funny. Good teams always seem to get lucky. And the luck is, of course, an innate part of sports. I think hockey is the most luck-based sport, and that's not even a thing. The statistics bear that out as far as consistency and results, but being that it is so random, the good teams need that good luck on their side, and right now, it doesn't feel like the Oilers have a whole lot of it. I mean, they did all of the work to get back and tie this game level, and then they give the lead up 30 seconds later. That is as frustrating as possible. That is such a kick in the teeth. The Oilers could have stole this game. All they needed was one Pickard save. At this point, I'm ready to entertain the conversation about bringing up Connor Ingram. I don't know if he's ready. You don't know if he's ready. The Oilers probably don't know if he's ready. But Calvin Pickard's unplayable. He gave up 5 goals on 22 even strength scoring chances. That is unacceptable. This is AHL caliber goaltending. Connor Ingram might be just as bad, but at least you know then. I do not want to see Calvin Pickard start anymore, period. If you want to bring him in relief for games, fine. If Skinner's getting shelled and you don't want him to sit out there and take it on the chin, okay. I don't want to see Calvin Pickard anymore. He has not been competitive for the Oilers this year. It's disappointing. It's frustrating. I feel bad for the guy. But right now, the Oilers need breaks, and that is not a goalie capable of manufacturing them. That will do it for today's edition of Locked On Oilers. I want to thank everyone that made Locked On Oilers their first listen of the day, that helped make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Be sure to subscribe to Locked On Oilers wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, a 5-star review would be greatly appreciated. If you're watching over on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Let me know, do you think Zach Hyman is going to jump in right away and make an impact? I will talk to you guys on Monday. Everyone have a safe and fun weekend. Until then, let's go Oilers.